Hey everyone, this video is to help you with angles in standard form, talking about coterminal angles, and then also reference angles. So an angle that's in standard form or standard position starts on the positive x-axis. We have two different sides, what we call the initial side. Now, initial is the starting, so it's always where we start at on the positive x-axis. And then the terminal side is the side that rotates. So that's going to be this second ray here. And depending on where you place that ray determines how wide the angle is. The second thing that we do, all rotations move counterclockwise. So we have to show exactly how many rotations we've done. We just draw a little arrow like that shows us how big our angle is open. Now, as far as degree measurements, if we're talking about the positive degree measurement of our axes, we start at 0 degrees. We move counterclockwise, so that's 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then lastly, once you make a full rotation, is 360 degrees. It is vital that you understand and know these degree measurements. I can also name my quadrants. Between 0 and 90 is quadrant 1, 90 and 180 is quadrant 2, 180 and 270 is quadrant 3, 270 and 360 is quadrant 4. As far as our negative angles, because you can also have you can also draw negative angles, so we need to have our negative degrees. These are called our quadrantal angles. I start at 0 degrees, and instead of moving counterclockwise, I move clockwise. So this is negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, and lastly, negative 360. Apart from the fact that you now have negatives, the big thing you should notice is 90 and 270 are switching each time. Everything else is in the same position except for that it's negative. 90 and 270 are going to switch. So we're going to draw a picture of the angle in standard position and list which quadrant it lies in. So standard position means I always start on the x-axis. So if this is 0, 90, 180, 270, 360, I know that it's going to have to be between 270 and 360. More specifically, it's going to be really close to 360. And then the last thing that you do, because I don't know if I'm talking about the big angle or the small negative angle, is you draw the arrow around to tell you exactly how you've moved. You've moved 360 in the positive direction. All right, so for negative 150, starting at the same position, my initial side. Negative 180, remember this is 0, negative 90, negative 180. Negative 150 is going to be between 90 and 180. A little bit closer to negative 180. And then what I do is I draw to show exactly how I've opened. The last one is a little bit tricky because if you label your quadrantal angles, you'll see that 500 is bigger than each of them. That means that you've gone around once plus a little bit more. So if I do 500 minus 360, that's going to give me 140. I'm going to draw a 140 degree angle. It's going to be about there. Now, the only thing that I'm going to be careful of is I need to show that I've gone more than 360 degrees. So I start at 0, I go around the circle once to get to 360, and then I keep going another 140. So I have an extra kind of swirl in this picture. Coterminal angles, what you see here, terminal, which means they have the same terminal side. They end in the same position. Basically, what you do to find coterminal angles is you add 360 degrees or you subtract 360 degrees, because that means you're going to end in the same side. So to find the measure of one positive and one negative angle that are coterminal to the one shown, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 135 plus 360, and I'm going to take 135 minus 360. Thing you have to be careful of here is you want to put the angle first. You don't want to do 360 minus 135, because that's going to give you the completely opposite angle. So when I add here 135 plus 360, that's going to give me 495 degrees. And 135 minus 360 is going to give me negative 225 degrees. Now, for the next one, the negative angle starts the same way, negative 120 plus 360 and negative 120 minus 360. What I'm going to do here, this is going to give me 240 degrees, and this is going to give me negative 480 degrees. And before we move on in the notes, we're going to come back up here because I realized I forgot something. Last thing I have to do for this, list which quadrant the angle lies in. So in this first one, we're in quadrant 4. In the second one, we are in quadrant 3. And in the last one, we're in quadrant 2. Last thing we want to talk about, which is probably the most important, is called the reference angle. It's the positive acute angle formed by the terminal side to the ending side and the x-axis. We always draw to the nearest x-axis. I cannot stress that enough. There's always somebody that tries to draw to the y-axis. It goes to the x-axis. It goes to the horizontal. And it's always less than 90 degrees because it is an acute angle. So I'm drawing to the nearest x-axis, which means in my first one, I'm going to draw not to 0, 360, but to 180. And then we ask the question, how much more to get to 180? Well, 135 plus 45 equals 180. For the second one, your ray is closer to 180, so instead of drawing down, I'm actually going to draw up this time. Now remember, it's always a positive angle. It doesn't matter which direction you're drawing to. 210 is 30 degrees past 180. And for the last one, yes, these are negative angle measurements. You almost want to ignore them in this case. Negative 240, which you can tell this is drawn, and this should be negative 120. Negative 120 is closer to the negative 180. So I draw up. We totally ignore the negatives. 120 is 60 degrees away from 180.